Hello everyone, it's DuckFerrin07 and today we are playing some Naya Winota Legends. I'm very excited for this deck and this is something I was really trying to make work for a long time, but it wasn't really possible to do it in a good way until some of the new cards went out and considerably upgraded the deck. And by new cards, I mean we have a lot of them here really. So there is Mary, Esquire of Rohan, which says when you attack with Mary and another legendary creature, draw a card. There are a lot of legendary creatures here, so we can start drawing cards immediately at turn 2 if our Ragavan survives turn 1, and if not, we have a lot of other legendaries. So there is a Samut, also a card from recent edition, which says whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, if that creature entered the battlefield this turn, draw a card. So the thing about this card, this is also a legendary creature, which works great with Mary and other stuff in deck, because I think, in my opinion, Samut, Vizier of Naktamun is one of the best Winota hits ever printed in Modern. This is extremely desirable creature for this deck. It is a human warrior cleric, and what it does, when you trigger a Winota and when you get the Winota abilities and you find a Samut, or you already have a Samut on the field, so each creature you find with Winota and each creature that deals damage that enter the battlefield that same turn will let you draw a card, and this is very desirable effect in this deck, which was previously only possible with Seasoned Pyromancer, which was usually the best Winota card for the Winota deck for two reasons: because it provides you a non-creature, it is a human that produces two non-human tokens, and you can cast it turn before you cast Winota. It just fits the mana curve very good. Samut unfortunately doesn't come with non-human tokens. That's why Seasoned Pyromancer is and probably always will be a best Winota hit. But Samut is very good because of this ability that lets you draw a bunch of cards when you have this on the field and you trigger your Winota. So the smallest amount of cards I've drawn with the Samut and the Winota so far was two cards, but often it was more than two cards, and it's not just a Winota trigger. This card can draw you a lot of cards in this deck even without Winota, because there is a lot of cards in this deck, creatures in this deck that have haste, and it works very well with those creatures, Samut. So you have Mary with haste, you have Questing Beast with haste, you have Ragavan Dash that comes in with haste. Okay, so you got to play some removal in your deck, right? So we have some Furies, Solitudes, and Lightning Bolt. Some of the best removal, and Lightning Bolt is very desirable in this kind of aggro shell that is trying to be aggressive, so you can often deal your last few damage with the Lightning Bolt. Okay, so we have a Solitude and Fury here, and as you could see in one of my prior brews, I used the Melira and Safi to scam the Solitude and Fury in play in this kind of zoo shells. So we have Safi and Melira too in this deck as humans, very good, desirable human targets for this deck. So to play Winota deck, you got to have 12 non-Winota humans in your deck to be able to just work consistently the Winota ability, and to provide you always get some target when you do a trigger. This can be very important. So there are also some humans on the sideboard, so that enable us to sometimes board out some of our humans in the main to put some things we need more from the sideboard. Okay, so let us see first the main until the end. So we have two Safi and two Melira, only for reason Melira is better in this deck, but we have two Safi, two Melira just for a reason that with these numbers, you get less chance to draw a double Melira and less chance to draw a double Safi, and that's what I feel like probably the most important. And the stats are sometimes relevant, but not that often. So Melira is better, but we play a 2-2 split because we don't want to have a double of each of these cards. So there is a Delighted Halfling in this deck, very good, one of the best legal mana dorks in the game, and it says when you take mana with the Delighted Halfling, that spell can be countered if it's a legendary spell. So we have a lot of legendary spells in this deck, and it works perfect. The Delighted Halfling is a great upgrade for this deck, and it lets you play your Winota, Questing Beast, Samut, Mary, whatever uncounterable, which can be huge against a counterspell deck, of course. So we have like these 4 and these 8, which is total of 12 human targets. And Melira and Safi are just very good fit with the Solitude and Fury, and we got to play Solitude to have some amount, Solitude and Fury to have some amount of removal in this deck other than just a Lightning Bolt. And the Safi and Melira just are so very synergistic with them that it's one of the few best human targets human Winota targets you can play in this deck. It's very nice with Winota. The opponent have to kill this, or you'll be able to protect Winota with it, which is of course in a lot of situations very good. So I think this is a very synergistic piece, and it in a lot of situations it helps you have like broken turn 2, turn 3, and gets you like provides you with an additional way to deal with heavy aggro starts from the opponents, and having the Melira and Safi as ephemerate effect to scam the Fury Solitude in. We all know how strong can that be. Okay, so I'm sure that a lot of you are skeptic when seeing Mary and Samut in a deck like this, which this is a 3-mana creature that dies to bolt, of course, but it is also a great Winota target. For me, it's one, as I said, it's second best Winota target ever printed for Modern. And I think with these prints, I think the Winota deck gets really close to being a powerful piece. Maybe it needs a few more, but Delighted Halfling, Samut are very good prints for this type of deck. So Mary has been great so far in this legendary shell, and I really liked the card. And so far, this is my final list, and I'm very happy with it. And I would say no changes for now for this list. Questing Beast, it's a 4-mana creature which is just a very good hate piece against the One Ring, which is very like omnipresent at the moment. It is also a creature with haste that works well with the Samut, and it's also a good creature, just a very good creature at the moment by itself, because a lot of decks are playing Planeswalkers, and it's a very good hate. Most of these Planeswalkers come in with a 3-4 3 or 4 counters on it when they enter. So Questing Beast in most situations can immediately kill the target, and while dealing damage to the face, which is very important for this deck. It has been just very good piece, and a lot of decks have problems blocking it because they only have creature with power 2 or less. And that's it. So another new card in this deck is Minas Tirith. This is one of the best lands from the new edition, Lord of the Rings. This one says that you tap 2 mana and tap the Minas Tirith, and you draw a card, which is just great ability. And but you can activate it only if you have 2 or more creatures attacking this turn. So that is not so hard in this deck. We have basically only creatures here. So a lot of them have haste, and we have some ramp and like Ragavan and Halfling. So it's not that hard to trigger the Mina Spirit, and Mina Spirit has been just very good inclusion for this deck. So on the sideboard we have these 6 humans, 3 Magus of the Moon, 3 Dranet Magistrate. Magus of the Moon is the reason I play 5 basics in this deck, and it is the reason why I don't play um some other lands instead, because I really want to have access to 2 of each of these basics plus 1 mountain. And that is it. Granite Magistrate, because there are a lot of um, Cascade decks at the moment. It's one of the best hits against Cascade deck. It has 3 toughness, so Rhinos will have problem killing it. It's also a human, so you can find it from the Winota. It's pretty good. So 2 Orvars for creativity, of course, and other Archon of cruelty decks. 4 Force of Figures are very well supported here. We have enough of the green cards, 14 in the main, that's more than enough. 3 Endurance as the best graveyard hit option for this deck. We have some graveyard interaction in the main with Safi and Melira, so can't really play like something like Rest in Peace. Okay, so, but Endurance is also, I think, like preferable in this type of deck. So that is it. I played a few leagues with it, a couple of them ended up 4-1. I played the regular leagues, I played friendly leagues, both of them had similar results, and had a couple of 3-2s, a couple of 4-1s, and we are just going to now go through one of these 4-1 leagues and see how the deck played out and how it performed. Okay, so this is match number 1, game number 1. Okay, so starting with the turn 1 halfling, but have a problem here because I don't have any red mana. Fortunately, I have a halfling here to provide me red mana for the Samut. I find a Fury this turn to be able to kill the Chatterfang. So I kill the Chatterfang, immediately attack with Samut and get a draw card. This Samut now works very well with my other hasty creatures, especially like this one is at this exact moment like one of the best, certainly. So I'm able to attack again with the Samut and the Questing Beast. My opponent can't block the Questing Beast because of its ability, and I get to draw another card. With the Samut. So I play the Mary, I play Ragavan with the dash, attack with the 2 new legendaries here. So I get to draw from the Mary, and my opponent blocks both of my legendaries to prevent me from drawing more cards. But I already drawn more than enough, and they lost their board presence, and they didn't have ways to survive another turn. By the way, it's like Sultai Coco Lonis combo deck. Okay, so this was a quick win. This deck just wasn't able to compete with aggressiveness from Samut, Mary, Questing Bees, and Vinota, whatever, Fury. Okay, so I decided to start with the Halfling here because I had wanted to have Ragavan in hand in case I need to pitch cast Fury or something, but I went for the Ragavan dash and just played another halfling. My opponent just went for turn 3 Woe Strider, but I already had 5 mana. So I was able to hard cast a Fury on turn 3, which was a plus Ragavan cast, and also had another Fury in hand. This was just too much for the opponent. They didn't have a good hand, and they conceded. Okay, so that was a very quick game 1. Let's check out the next game. Okay, we'll go through the wins first and leave the defeat for the last game. Okay, only red and white mana here, but the hand is good. I have turn 1 Ragavan into turn 2 Mary. plus a spiral and bolts. I would say pretty good hand. Okay, I play my planes. I play the Mary. I try to go for attack and I succeed to do it. I get a draw from the Mary, which is just incredible, and also connect with the Ragavan. This was a Reanimator. Opponent played the turn 2 Rona. But I had a Bolt plus turn 3 Samut, which means I get to draw another card from Mary and also get to draw from Samut. This is already just so much card draw and very hard for my opponent to deal with all of this. I go for the Winota here and get 4 of the Winota abilities. And I think, yeah, my opponent concedes, nothing to do here. Okay, so let's check out the game 2. Okay, so not a great hand at this time, but I decide to keep anyway. Ragavan turn 1 means if I can connect, I can immediately draw a card from the Minas Tirith turn 2, but my opponent this time had removal. I play my Delighted Halfling, which means I'm able to go for the Questing Beast on turn 3. And I go for it. Turn 3 Questing Beast, I think it's pretty good against most of decks. Attacking with haste for 4 damage, and opponent was mana screwed, so they again concede, and it was a very quick win in the second match also. So let's check out to some the games that lasted a bit more. But the thing is, with this type of decks, you will just often get these type of games where you just end the game very quickly. Your opponent just as often can't deal with starting pressure. This time I played against Yagmoth, and Yagmoth is pretty good against Ragavan. So I cast turn 2 Melira, just pass the turn, so can connect with Wall of Roots on the field. Opponent plays a Grist, another very good card that provides block. I decided to trade the Melira for the token here and just draw the card from Minas Tirith, hoping to find Solitude or a Fury. My opponent draws the Yagmoth. Opponent draws the Yagmoth and plays it. I decide to go for the Questing Beast, attack, and try to take some counters of the Grist. I deal 3 damage to opponent and Grist, but my opponent plays Hapatra, which means like they have infinite draw, so I decide to concede. They can kill all my creatures. This is very good, obviously, against all the creature decks. So I had to concede there. So let's check out the game 2. Okay, in the game 2, had a decent hand. Turn 1 Bolt, turn 2 Melira, turn 3 Samut. If you can connect this, it can be pretty good. I get the Fury draw is really good here. I just pass the turn holding Bolt and preparing to go for the Samut next turn. I bolted the Hierarch end of turn. I play my Samut and attack. Opponent blocks with the Young Wolf. It comes back with the Undying Trigger, but Questing Beast is just very good. Very good here, and it enabled me to attack immediately with both of these creatures, and I immediately get to deal 4 damage to Grist. I think like Questing Beast was pretty spectacular here. It was like one of the main reasons I was able to win. I didn't want to cast Fury here just to kill the young wolf. I really wanted to save Fury to be able to kill the Yawgmoth. It was, I think, really important. And my opponent did play Yawgmoth next turn with just one card in hand at this point. So I went for the Fury. Of course, kill the Yawgmoth. Opponent decides. I decided it's best for me to attack with a halfling there and not cast the Safi. An opponent didn't have any choice, didn't find any answers, so they concede. Okay, that was game 2 against Yagmoth. So let's check out the game 3. Okay, I keep a pretty good hand. I have Fury. Fury can be like really good against this type of decks. I have the Spyro. I have the Winota. Very good, like very good curve. Also find the second Fury, which is also great. So I get to I discard 2 cards, get the 2 elemental tokens, which is great news for my plans of playing the Winota next turn. Also, just having the backup Fury, and I also had Melira to possibly scam a Fury, but I decided just it's best for me to go for the Winota here and get my stuff going. Also, if I find Sapphire Melira, I can scam the Fury anyway. So I thought this is like probably the best way, and I was able to kill the Grist immediately, which was very important to protect my main creature here. My opponent goes for another Grist to kill the Winota, but I have Melira to protect it, so it doesn't mean much. I also had a Fury for the next turn, so it's definitely game over. And that was the Yagmoth game. So let's check out the next game. Okay, so this was the last win from the league. The starting 2 wins were pretty quick against the decks that are not top tier, but yeah, I had plenty of other matchups that were definitely top tier decks. And the deck overall performed pretty well against most of these. So I started with the Ragoan. I think this was creativity opponent. I decided to go for the Safi here. Another thing why the Halfling is a good card, it's because it's a 1/2, so it doesn't get pinged by Vren like in a lot of other cards. So I played my Spyro here and just to let them do the creativity thing if they have it. They didn't have it, so I was able to attack with the elemental tokens, get some triggers, and I found Samut and Spyro. So I draw some more cards with Samut. I draw 2 cards from Spyro and then 2 more cards from the Samut ability, which is just great. Also got another elemental token. Well, at this point, even if my opponent has creativity, I'm still pretty good, in a pretty good shape. That's exactly what happened. So I get the questing beast from the top of my deck, and at this point, my plan was like Solitude one of the Archons and attack. I get a lot of not abilities, but I get the questing beast, so I decided to just cast the questing beast, attack with everything, and like try to finish off my opponent, which is who is tapped out. I find creatures with all my Vinota abilities, and it's more than enough to finish off my opponent. A lot of damage here. They block my 2 biggest creatures. It doesn't matter. I have more than enough. So that was it. And also Samus triggers, like this happens every time. It's just crazy with Winota. All the creatures that enter the battlefield that same exact turn, and you get to draw from each of your Winota triggers, which is like often can be just very crazy. And it will in some situations it will just immediately win you the game on turn 3, turn 4, something like that. Okay, so that was it. Win in first game against Creativity. Let's watch the second game. Okay, mulligans to 6 cards, 2 Ragavans, 2 Halflings. Not a great hand, but a keepable one. So my opponent plays Vran 6, that's why I decided to go for the Halfling on turn 1 and not the Ragavan. This way, if they have Vran, they don't just ping my Ragavan, but if my Halfling survives, I can also just go for Ragavan Dash and just play another Halfling, which is pretty good. So I attack face and just cast my other Halfling. I get the third land and I decide at this moment I go for Magus of the Moon. Maybe the Dragavan was a better choice, but my opponent now played second Teferi, and considering I already have 2 Dragons in hand, that definitely wasn't a good thing. And with the Vren on 7 and the Teferi on 6 counters, it was just a bad news, and my draws were not good, so I had to concede here. That was it. And yeah, so let's check out the game 3. Game 3 against Creativity. I went mulligan to 6, put down Fury from this hand. I think this is decent hand. Turn 1, play into turn 2, into turn 3, all pretty good cards, aggressive. Okay, so I go, and yeah, something happened here. I misclicked. I cast my Melira. I wanted to cast my Melira and cast my Ragavan, but yeah, when I went to take mana from the Halfling, I must have like pressed Melira before, so when I went to take mana from the Halfling, unfortunately, Melira sacrificed itself, exiled itself. So yeah, was a really bad news for me, but I was able to like win anyway, so at least that ended up pretty good, so it was okay. So I went for the Mary here. Yeah, like this, it was really a bad thing, like me losing that Melira for nothing, but luckily my opponent let me draw cards with Mary before and let me first draw cards with Mary and then play the removal, which was pretty good considering I did such a terrible misclick. Okay, so I was able to draw 2 cards from Mary here and didn't get a draw for Samut, but yeah, it was pretty good deal for me. I went bold face and my opponent was screwed, so I was able to cast the questing beast and once again get the third draw from the Mary. Deal 6 damage to face and have a pretty good situation for the next turn. My opponent untaps and doesn't find land and they concede. So that was the win against Creativity. Okay, so even after that very bad Melira misclick in the beginning, opponent yeah, they let me draw a few cards for nothing, but uh, they would probably lose anyway because they were mana screwed this game. This is thing that just happens sometimes with Creativity, and that is it. So we will now watch the defeat. The only defeat in this league, it was this game. I remember it being like really close in the third game. This was a pretty good hand. Turn 1 Ragavan, turn 2 Safi. I also can just turn 2 scam the Furin using Safi, of course. But I decided against it. I wanted my opponents to like play something else. They did play Chief Engineer, and I wanted for them to like play another creature before I scam the Fury. So on turn 3 I went Winota, scam Fury, and I'll find another Melira, and this is just a GG for the opponent. Opponent played a pretty interesting deck. It was like mono blue convoke. It was pretty fun, and they had a luck in a game 3. Okay, so let's see. I boarded in Force of Figures. I just took out some questing beasts and a few solitudes to fit in 4 Force of Figures. I decided to kill the Ethereum Sculptor, and I was able to use the Force of Figure here. So it was pretty incredible actually that I didn't win this game. Consider that I was able to use the Force of Figure. I had Bolt plus Ragavan in the beginning, and I guess I was just my opponent played the Gravedigger's Cage, which was definitely one of the defining things here. I played Safi, I played Halfling, just passed the turn. Opponent plays Ethereum Sculptor, plays a Pitting Needle. I was able to, it was a stale position. Didn't have a good draws. I couldn't get abilities from Winota because of the cages on the field, and my opponent finds the Wormcoil Engine, while I just had a double legends in my deck, in my hand, not doing much. And also my opponent got the second Ballista on 3 counters, which was definitely a game over for me. Already my opponent had a lot, so that was the game. So let's check out the third game. Okay, so third game I was playing first. I would say like I was pretty favorable to win this one. I also had turn 1 Ragavan, had a Force of Figure, also had a Safi to possibly scam Fury again on turn 2. So a lot of stuff, a lot of good stuff here. I went for the Safi and just attack with Ragavan. I decided to save Ragavan. I'm also interested, like in my decisions this game. Maybe I could have done some better decisions. My opponent played a Chief Engineer, which blocked my Ragavan pretty good. I had a Force of Figure for this turn, but yeah, opponent resolved the Ballista, and now they had one card in the hand. And yeah, I think I didn't have much luck here. My opponent top deck the Werncoil. It was a pretty good top deck, and it happened just before turn where I was able to cast the Fury and kill a lot of their stuff. They were now with 0 cards in their hand, and they had a Werncoil, but yeah, I had Fury, had a Melira, had a Spyro. I think my deck has better late game. So I was able to get out of all of this, and I was able to save the Melira, save the Fury, get it back, and I decided to go for the attacks with the Fury, and I traded with one of the tokens there, and maybe that was a bad decision from me to start attacking with Fury. but I was expecting to get something better from the top, but my top was just not good. Samut, this was one of the rare situations where Samut didn't do a good job, and my opponent had this throne of the God Pharaoh, which just pressured me really well. I was able to finally get Winota, and I got the worst trigger from the Winota, just finding another Winota. And I did get a draw from the Samut, which was good, but yeah, that wasn't what I needed, and my opponent had a better draws from the top, like Throne of the God Pharaoh and the Smuggler Copter were lethal for the next turn, so I conceded, and that was it. But I feel like this was the game I definitely could have won, and I think I was definitely favorable. But yeah, okay, so it was really close to the trophy, but missed it. As I said, I played multiple leagues with this deck, not just this one, and had pretty good results in all the leagues play. As I said, all the leagues that I went through were either 3-2 or 4-1. I got a lot of free wins using Mary, Samut, and Questing Beast, and early Vinota, also scamming Fury Solitude in the early turns. And I think this functioned just very well, and I'm very happy with it. So I think finally this type of deck feels like very playable for me, and I'm definitely a fan of Vinota. Played a lot of different brews and variants. I think I can say this one is one of my among my favorites. It's very fun, and I really like the Samut, the card draw, the Mary and Samut together can provide often, and I think this is all very synergistic and fun to play. Also, the Minas Tirith uh, didn't draw it too much in this league. I did have it draw it once, drew me a card, immediately come in untapped. Never had problems with Minas Tirith in this deck. Always I had opportunity to either play it turn one if I don't have another one drops, or I played it in a mid game or late game, but it would enter untapped and never had problems so far. Okay, it's like white Castle Locked-Wine, and I'm very happy with one of Minas Tirith. So that is it. That is it for today. Hope you like the video. Hope you like the gameplay. If you want to help the channel, click like, click subscribe, comment in the video, and that's it for today. Goodbye.